Okay, thanks. Thanks, Richard, and thanks for everybody who was able to join this presentation. My name is Johannes Lekoto. I'm based in Mpumalanga. I do enforcement. Our topic of I'm presenting on gill netting in freshwater ecosystems, which, like Richard has alluded, is a problem in many parts of the country. So this is what the presentation is all about. I'll then move to my first slide. The first slide is about what is gill netting. I'm saying here gill netting is a fishing method that uses gill nets and vertical panels of netting that hang from a line with regularly spaced floaters that hold a line on the surface of the water. There are two methods of gill net fishing. One is a set net that will be anchored into the water to the desired depth to stop any movement of the net. The other is a drift net, which is kept afloat in the water with buoys tied to the boat and left to drift with the water's current. I'm supporting this slide with a picture here of the fish hanging from the net in the water. I think everybody can see that. I'll then move to my other slide.
Sorry, Johannes. Sorry, we can't see your slide on our side.
You can't see my slide?
No.
Richard?
Yeah, I can see it on my side. Can others see it?
I can see it. I can see it.
I can.
I cannot also see the slide clearly.
I've got it. I just double click on Johannes's photo. I've got it now. Thanks.
You've got it now. Okay.
Yes, we got it. Thanks.
Can I continue or shall I start from the beginning?
Hello, guys. I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
You can probably just go back to the previous slide there just to show everyone quickly. It's just one more slide.
Okay, we'll start here. What is gill netting? It is a fishing method that uses gill nets and vertical panels of netting that hang from a line with regularly spaced floaters that hold a line on the surface of the water. There are two methods of gill net fishing. One is a set net that will be anchored into the water to the desired depth to stop any movement of the net. The other is a drift net, which is kept afloat in the water with buoys tied to the boat and left to drift with the water's current. I'm supporting this slide with a picture here of the gill net with some fish hanging from the net. I'll then move to the next slide. And it says, what is a gill net? A gill net is a wall or curtain of netting that hangs vertically in the water column and is typically made from monofilament or multifilament nylon. They are generally weighted on the bottom and have a series of floats along the surface line. The size of fish caught will depend on the size of the mesh, but a wide range of species and sizes are potentially caught. There's a picture as well there of the net showing the floaters how the net looks like, how it hangs in the water, and some fish there to show that it is meant to catch the fish. I'll quickly move to the next slide. How fish are caught with gill nets. Fish are caught, they are gilled, meaning they are held by the mesh behind the gills. They are wedged, held by the mesh around the body. They are snagged when fish is held tight by the twine of the mesh around its head. They are entangled, held by the teeth, spines, maxillaries, or other protrusions without the body penetrating the mesh. Mesh sizes are designed to allow fish to get only their head through the netting, but not their body. The fish's gills then get caught in the mesh as the fish tries to back out of the net. As the fish struggles to free itself, it becomes more and more entangled. Here on the side, I'm showing exactly what I mean when the fish are gilled. They are wedged, they are snagged, or they are entangled. To support my slide. I hope it is clear to everybody. I'll then move to the disadvantages of gill netting. Gill nets do an unbelievable amount of damage. They are used to capture large amounts of fish. They do not only catch targeted species, but any creature that swims into them. Gill nets cause overexploitation of target species. There's high incidences of loss and waste of these species due to gill nets. There's a high number of incidental catches of non-target species, particularly freshwater animals and birds in lakes, rivers, dams, and estuaries. There's a picture there indicating large quantities of fish that have been caught, also of different species. And there are some nets on the side there that indicate that all the fish that are lying there were caught by the nets. And the suspect or the culprit is also in the picture there as well, who caught the fish. I'll move to another slide. The impact of gill netting on freshwater ecosystems. There is substantial scientific evidence that gill nets have resulted in fish populations decline worldwide, taking several fish species to near extinction. It's a big concern. The use of gill nets is not only environmentally destructive, but it has a negative impact on both recreational and subsistence anglers. Indiscriminate fishing gear such as gill nets result in both declining fish stocks and threatens the survival of marine and freshwater species that attract tourists from all over the world. Limiting these harmful and unsustainable fishing practices should be a priority, and this is broadly supported by scientific evidence demonstrating the negative impact of gill netting. So the scientific evidence to support that gill netting are not good for the ecosystems. I'll move to another slide, which is a continuation of the previous one. Additionally, the negative impact of gill nets extend to many other freshwater species. Because gill nets have a low selectivity and high mortality rates associated with their bycatch, and this represents a major threat to freshwater ecosystems. In the previous slide, I spoke about bycatch, What is bycatch? What is a bycatch? It is the incidental capture and mortality of non-target marine and freshwater animals during a fishing exercise. And it is one of the principal threats to marine and aquatic biodiversity worldwide. Meaning, when you put the poacher or whoever puts a net in the water, he or she targets the fish. But eventually the net captures other species that were him or her did not intend to catch. So that is called a bycatch. How does a bycatch occur with gillnets? A bycatch occurs when gillnets catch the wrong species, wrong sex, or undersized or juveniles of target species. As a result of gillnets, species such as otters, terrapins, crabs, crocodiles, and bird species, including cormorants and greater crested grebes, are also caught from time to time in these nets. I understand that in some areas, even small hippos get caught in gillnets as well. My picture here on the side shows a turtle. Unfortunately, I could not get a freshwater picture of a freshwater species, so I used a marine species picture. But this turtle here is entangled in a net, which is terrible. The intention was not to catch the turtle, it was to catch fish, but eventually the turtles get caught. And some of the species are threatened or are near extinction, but they get caught in this net. I'll then move to the other slide. What is ghost fishing? It's still related to the nets, to gill nets. Ghost nets are fishing nets that have been abandoned, lost, or otherwise discarded in the estuaries, lakes, and dams, even in the ocean. This gear continues to fish and trap animals, entangle and potentially kill aquatic life, smother habitats, and act as a hazard to navigation. Because of their non-biodegradable nature, gill nets continue to kill freshwater animals for many years. So if you lose your fishing gear, your nets, it settles at the bottom of that dam, the ocean, or the estuary, and it continues to catch the animals that swim in that area, and they get caught. Like my picture here indicates, there's a penguin there that has been caught in a gill net that has settled at the bottom of the ocean, and the turtle as well. You can see how terrible these animals get caught, and eventually they end up dead because of gill nets. I'll then move to the removal and destruction of gill nets. In most cases, in our province, where there are dams and there's a problem of gill nets, we dispatch field rangers to patrol the dams, and whenever gill nets are spotted, the field rangers get into the water, drag them out, and we destroy those gill nets because they create a lot of problems in our freshwater ecosystems. So there's a picture there to support what I'm talking about. A couple of guys there, they are pulling out a net that they've spotted in the water, and to then be, the suspects are not found and charged. We then take out the nets and destroy them. I've decided to include this recent case that we had in the province in an area where I'm working. On the 19th of January of this year, the gentleman on my left, Mr. James Chauke, was arrested. The middle picture here is the gillnet that he was using, and the picture on the right is the fish that was caught by him. These are the gentlemen that I'm working with, the one who's busy with the fish. It is the catch of Mr. Chauke, who was caught on the 19th of January. And his case is still going on. It's not yet concluded at the Middleburg Magistrate Court in the province. It clearly means that we're not just talking about this thing. It is a real problem that exists. As recent as now in January, somebody was caught. And we continue to catch people. Or sometimes we only get the nets and the people they run away. I'll move to the next slide. Mr. James Chauke that I mentioned in the previous slide was caught in Loskop Dam Nature Reserve, which is one of our major dams in the province, even in the country. He was found in possession of various species of fish, which included the blue capper and the yellow fish, which are highly protected in the province and national. He was catching them with a gillnet. So you could catch, even though there's a daily quota of how many fish you can catch in a day if you use the normal rod, but with a gillnet you catch as much as you can and it costs a lot of time. So our act here, he was charged for contravening section 53, 55, and 56 of the Mpumalanga Nature Conservation Act number 10 of 1998. The use of gillnets is illegal. The use of gillnets is illegal other than when used for experimental purposes. Generally, they are considered to be a threat to river and estuarine fish populations. Gillnets are not only illegal, but can be a highly destructive and indiscriminate form of fishing that threatens local fish populations and their sustainable use. In terms of the act that we use in our province, the Mpumalanga Nature Conservation Act number 10 of 1998, section 55, subsection 1A, no person shall possess a net or a trap with which fish may be caught. Any person who contravenes or fails to comply with subsection 1 shall be guilty of an offense and liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years, or both a fine and such imprisonment. So Mr. James Chauke, who was caught, that's exactly what he must go through. If he's found guilty, will either be charged, will be either be fined or will be imprisoned, or will be fined and imprisoned. Both will get both a fine and imprisonment. Yeah. On the picture there, I'm just showing a suspect that has been caught for fishing with gillnets, with buckets full of fish of different species. That's what we do, we experience on daily in our dams in the province and even in the rivers. Yeah, which is a big problem. So we as enforcement people, that's what we experience almost on a daily basis in our dams in the province. That concludes my presentation, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you.
Brilliant, well done. Thanks, Johannes. Thank you very much for that informative presentation. I guess I'll open it to the floor first of all, if there are any questions for Johannes, and then it would be quite nice to just share, start a discussion here around gill netting, what your experiences are in your province, and how we best counteract this. It's a common problem in all provinces, so I think if we could share some success stories, it might help others.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for a very informative. I have to leave now, but thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Johannes. It's Van
Hello.
here from Limpopo. Thank you for the presentation. It was well done. I just want to get a bit of perspective, what's the word now? An idea what is going on in Limpopo province. There are two big dams where there are very much netting on the go. The one is Freshwater Dam, and the other one is Nondoni Dam near Thohoyandou. Now, a couple of years ago, before I left the department, I was working with the police at Nondoni Dam, where there's a lot of netting taking place. And the situation was so bad that if you go to the dam and try to do anything about the poaching, you get shot at. And apparently that is also now happening in the area of Freshwater Dam, which is very terrible. So it's a very intimidating situation for the people that do the law enforcement. They get shot at. That's how serious this is. Now, I'm also a fisherman. I used to fish Arabi Dam very often, or Freshwater, and for the last 3 to 4 years, we started catching less and less and less fish. Something is going very wrong in that dam. People that go on the boats and fish for kerper also come down and they say that there's a big problem. They don't catch the size kerper and the numbers that they used to catch many years ago. So I'm sure that is prescribed because of the gill netting that is happening in the dam. I also know that the people at the dam, the officers there, do regular patrols. They go check the dam and they take out nets on a regular basis. And it takes a lot of effort from them. And I really applaud them for that. And a couple of years ago, 2 to 3 years ago, there was a crocodile of about 5 meters long. I've known that crocodile for about 40 years because I started my career at Marble Hall Fisheries. And I used to see that guy swimming around in the river before the dam was even built. And one day fishermen found the crocodile dead. I think it was in the news everywhere. And when they opened it up, there were gill nets in its stomach. So it died because of that. He obviously went for the fish and also swallowed the net. So he died. Probably a very terrible death. But it's a loss. I mean, that thing was probably hundreds of years old, 100 or more years old. And now it's a loss for the ecosystem. So it's not only fish that is detrimentally affected, but it's also the crocodiles and other things. I don't know what the solution here is, but it needs a real serious effort to try and stop this. Probably we won't stop it, but we can probably dampen it down somehow. And I just wanted to give you this little bit of a, idea of what's going on in Limpopo. Smaller dams also get nailed. Not the more prominent dams, the smaller dams in the area, local area around Polokwane. We know that there's a lot of gill netting going on, and also drag nets and stuff. And there's no solution. The people are very few on the ground. The enforcement officers are very few, and they cannot handle all this. So it's a bad situation, and it's serious. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Johannes, thank you very much for a very informative. So, as a prosecutor, When I was a prosecutor and also in the last 24 years of private practice dealing with prosecution and with compliance and assisting the various agencies, this crime seemed to be slipping under the radar. We have so many other issues to deal with in biodiversity, rhino and the charismatic species, that these crimes have sort of started escalating because you guys are so thin on the ground in all the agencies. People, it's so hard to police everything because every form of conservation, biodiversity is being targeted. But what is happening is the commercial scale of gill netting has sort of eroded the freshwater system already. So your species, not only of the fish that's been taken out for commercial purposes now, but also all the other animals, birds, reptiles, amphibians. So I have dealt with matters up in northern Zululand, and my Zimvelo colleagues will be able to tell me as well, where small hippos are being caught for the pot through these gill nets in the estuaries out on the lakes because of them being entangled. Also, I do know that as a result of the Jazini Dam gill netting that has been tried to be policed for many years, and there is just a proliferation of nets, the conflict between the elephants and the gill netters has come to a fruition where a gill netter was trampled by an elephant, and that resulted in a backlash and then killing of elephants, and it's become a major issue on the Jazini Dam side into Pongola. So it shows you, if we take the old New York principle of the mayor, Giuliani, who said it's a broken window. If you don't deal with those that are breaking windows, similarly, if we take an analogy of the gill net in the water system, we don't police that, how are we going to police the big organized crime and other issues? Because they all become major issues. So I from the legal side and having a look and being around the country and the region, we're going to need to do something. And one solution may be, if you guys are thin on the ground, you may have to get community monitors who just work to monitor and give then information. That itself has a security risk because those people get targeted. But if we do not solve this issue of gill netting very quickly, the freshwater system will be eroded, and that's a knock-on effect to the whole system. So I applaud you, Johannes, you and Joseph in your area, the two of you, what you are doing in the Loskop area, and I'm sure you may be able to tell us a little bit more about what's happening in Mpumalanga. So I just wanted to give you the illustration from what we're seeing here and the overall aspect of the issues, and you've hit the mark. Thank you very much on that.
Thanks, Kevin.
I see a few people have their hands up here. Stephen, I don't know if you want to just go ahead then.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, must I
Hello.
say? Hello. I'm Steve Lambeth. I'm from DFFE, specifically from fisheries, and based in Cape Town. Thanks very much for that presentation. It highlights the problem. A lot of what I do is dealing with gill nets, mostly with marine and estuarine, including the legal marine fishery, but the illegal net fishery as well, in estuaries and in freshwater. Just for information, for the last National Biodiversity Assessment, which was the estuarine one, which was run by Laura van der Kerk, who's listening in here, we looked at all available data, compliance data, everything else we could find out on the gill net fishery and other fisheries from around the coast for estuaries alone. And what we came up with was an annual, for all South African estuaries, was an annual gill net catch of in excess of 2,500 tons by illegal gill net fisheries at the moment. And that a lot of that has actually gone from escalation of about 1,000 tons over the last 10 or so years. In one example from KZN, from all the actions by Ismvela up there, we've come to estimates is in the region of, across all estuaries, of the 100 or so estuaries in KZN at the moment, we've got in the region of 400 meters of net in any system at any one time. That's a system. That's a lot of net. Our recent trips up there, because in everywhere else, it's essentially, it appears to be a lot more than that, but 400 meters is a lot of net. On the plus side, what we have seen from the nets taken out and removed in KZN, from inland, from South Coast, from the Cape Coast, is that 60% of the nets that are removed in the water before they catch any fish. So the work has been done on the ground, but all you guys are out there who are removing the nets, you're making a massive difference. Those catches would be more than double if it wasn't from you actually taking the action and removing the nets continuous and the ongoing monitoring and surveillance, removing them. It makes a big, big difference. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on this. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks, man.
Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hello,
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Hello?
we can hear you.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lekoto. Thanks for your presentation. Thanks to everybody who attended. Thanks for the good presentation. Unfortunately, I'm going to leave you because of load shedding. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chris.
Guys, if you can just come back here. I fully agree with my friend there in KZN. I think in Limpopo we have a problem with legislation at the moment. We used to have the previous ordinance of Transvaal, which there was some regulations issued, limited the catch of certain species, the numbers and the size that you can keep, and also you cannot use or possess a gillnet and use it without a permit, which is still now in the new legislation. But they never issued regulations under the new act. So there's a big gray area here. We find that some of these fish that are caught in Nandoni Dam is getting sold through supermarkets in Thohoyandou at a large scale. So this whole thing is commercial. It is not a question of people doing subsistence poaching for the pot. It's a commercial business. And that's why they shoot at you when you go and scratch around for, in the areas. So we will have to have a great look at this in Limpopo, because we cannot carry on like that. There's a big loophole in this. When you find a guy with a lot of dead fish selling it, what is your recourse there? Can you charge him for something? He's in possession of the fish. It's dead. He's not selling live fish, because you cannot sell live fish without a permit. So there's a bit of a problem here in Limpopo, but I will speak to Rian about that soon about that. I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Johannes, I'd just like to comment on that. First of all, I'm really, really happy that our scientists are here, because we need you. Thank you for what you've done, because without the science in this, we don't really know what's happening, because the science drives the legislation and it drives the effort into dealing with compliance and enforcement. So Stephen and Lauren, thank you for your efforts, because as in everything else, as a prosecutor, in what I used to do is to get, if you want really good, want good sentences upon conviction, and to make sure that the magistrate doesn't think, well, it's just a couple of fish, you know, and there's a couple of barbel and there's some blue purple or there's some carp or whatever. The reality is that on this commercial basis, every day that's been taken out, and on large basis, and it's appearing, as Fawn said, in supermarkets, we have to then have this impact on those magistrates for sentences. And we have to make sure that it's a big issue when it comes to court. And a big work from my side, and where I work closely with you guys and DFFE and the agencies, is to make sure that when we deal with the prosecutors, the magistrates, that there's an understanding about how serious this is. It's not just a couple of fish or one cormorant or a couple of small hippos or a crocodile. You've heard what Fawn says about a big predator like a reptile that could be over 100 years old in the system being taken out. So eventually those animals don't have anything to feed off. So there's going to be major collapses. So we need to listen to the scientists. We need to take heed, and we need to get the science. We need this impacts to call the scientists like Stephen and Lauren and those that are doing all that hard work to have evidence in aggravation in one or two big cases, like Mr. Chowke's case. When you have evidence under oath like that in aggravation, the magistrate then is forced to look at that evidence, not just because someone is saying it, but because we've had an expert testify on it. So that impact is great, and our sentences will be made a difference. And once we start that way in an area and in a jurisdiction, it becomes a precedent for my colleagues who are the magistrates and the judges on appeals. So that must become a very important aspect, that we know what's happening in the marine system with gill netting and all of that, but we need to look at our freshwater system. So Johannes, I applaud you guys on the ground. You know, I know how few you are. And I'm really happy to hear that Stephen gives us the impact that removing. So I know there's a lot of fishing clubs that are doing this because they know their pastime and their love, like Fawn in fishing, is going to disappear. And tourism and whatever that would mean to our systems would become a problem. So it has a major impact on various aspects. So from that, I wish to say, I think from the prosecution side, and the magistracy, we need to also make sure that impact is felt through sentencing and in aggravation of sentence. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I just have a quick thing here about the inland fisheries policy and the current status at the moment. Hello?
We can hear you, Stephen.
Yeah, I don't know how many of you know about it, but 2, 3, 4 years ago, it was actually before COVID. The responsibilities for inland fisheries basically got taken from the provinces and put under national, under DFFE. The current legislation and everything else, well, to me, it's I really can't work out where it is at the moment and what has been gazetted or what hasn't been gazetted. But what has come out of it is that under the various ministerial working groups and everything else, under working group 7, there's now a inland fisheries task team on that. And that's specifically to deal with, well, obviously with inland fisheries, but with the management, with the enforcement, as to supposedly to align the legislation and regulations in different provinces, and the monitoring to align everything else. There's been meetings. It seems to have gone much quiet at the moment, but from my understanding of different ones that I attended, there were supposed to be representatives from each province who would attend and then basically put the province's cases forward, and then try and work out a way how to align the various provincial ordinances and everything with national and go for them like that. And it's also a case of especially with the netting and the gill netting and everything else, is to put that case forward and just essentially we need to put it forward as an inappropriate structured fishing method, and that there are alternatives. There's lots of tried and tested alternatives around the planet. They work, and there should be policy to actually, there should be a policy, or we should develop a policy to say that set a goal, set a date, that we will remove the gillnets from our systems and replace them with alternatives when we need to replace them with alternatives in the fishery and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think it goes through, you know, I think the people who are in this meeting, those of you interested, just send me the details and then I will link you into the into that task team, so well they can get hold of you in terms of your participation. I think, yeah, well, there's quite a few people listening here who would be very, very useful in those meetings. But thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Johannes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good evening. This is Boni Sotuma. I'm from Ezemvelo, KZN and Wildlife.
Welcome, sir.
I'm actually based in Isimangaliso, False Bay Park. So we basically also facing a similar situation with gillnets. You know, it's actually out of control. You know, it's something that we deal with on a daily basis. So I fully understand that the situation that you're going through yourselves in your province. But I just have a few questions. Maybe you can help us out here. What is your experience with regard to law enforcement, particularly when it comes to South African police services? You know, because I think that's where most of our cases actually fall into cracks. Because, you know, we can arrest people, we can do whatever we can, but then if ever, whenever we make these arrests, we put all the effort that we can, but eventually our cases do not receive the attention that they should be receiving from our colleagues from SAPS. And then it just renders the whole exercise fruitless. You know, I actually fully concur with what Kevin was actually saying in terms of prosecutors and stuff like that. But then also with our South African policies, I don't know if you've been able to actually get that working relations with our South African police service colleagues to an extent that they fully understand, you know, the effort that we actually put, you know, into ensuring that we actually protect and ensure that law enforcement activities are undertaken, you know, with regard to these gillnets. Because like I actually feel that is also where we're experiencing most of our challenges, you know, because you can arrest people, but then if ever, anytime you actually effect an arrest, but then nothing happens to the offenders and our colleagues or the field rangers see them walking scotch-free on the road, then, you know, it sort of demoralizes, because like I think those are the issues that you should also be addressing. I don't know how you've handled those in your province, but I think it will actually help us a lot if we can share some of those experiences as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Siboniso. Yeah, no, I like your question. Basically, we experience the very same problems here in our province as well with the police. Yeah, we experience exactly the same problem. So our cases are not taken seriously, especially when it comes to things like fish. Normally, you get questions like, how can you arrest someone for catching fish and stuff like that, which is very demoralizing. Yeah, so we experience the same problems. Something must happen. Yes, there must be some intervention somewhere so that the police can assist us and understand why we're trying to protect the fish and stuff like that. Yeah, that's what I can say.
Thanks, everyone. I see a few hands up. I just don't know if they haven't been put down yet. Stephen, can you just share your email address in the chat there, so those who want to get hold of you for that working group can do so?
Yeah, so I don't know why there's something wrong with your mic or your mute button or if you've got your volume too down, Billy. Yeah, I don't know why. Log back and come back in again. Sometimes that works, Billy. Thanks. Bye. Richard, can I propose some form of not really a silver bullet solution to Johannes? Sorry, was it Richard? Stephen, are you going to be speaking first? I don't know.
Sorry, it's an old hand.
Okay. All right. So all over South Africa, there's the same challenge. So as with the SAPs, when you get to human crimes, and we saw that in the prosecution, that'll always come first. So with crime waves, the police, their first priority, and also that of the prosecutors, is to deal with human crimes against humans. When you come with a Gillnet issue, first of all, with all due respect, many of them won't know how and where this comes in law. They depend on you to assist with this. And therefore, you'll see, and as I work closely with DFFE and in terms of the EMI side, Francis' section and that of Mark Jardine and Jacques de Toy on the training, you'll see that DFFE has got this course where they're taking you as EMIs. If you're an EMI and you have those mandates, to now start looking at your own investigation capabilities. That means that you are going to be able to carry your own EMI green dockets for your cases like this. So that means you will not be depending on the police solely and only to deal with your investigations into this. So these courses are now being run by the UN. I'm part of that. And those EMI case dockets where you will investigate your own offenses and not be depending, Siboniso, I know you on the list, you and Patrick and Pilasande, they're from Isimangaliso. Those courses are going to run. They're a 10-day intensive course where you practically will be dealing with it as if you are the investigator of a crime, of these crimes, and taking that matter to court. So that is on the go now. So Siboniso and others that are in the agencies, once you go through this and you are an EMI, and soon enough also I'm sure those will roll out to the other enforcement agencies, that you are going to be able to start investigating your own matters and not solely be dependent because of the matters of trying to get your dockets when dealing with these matters in terms of the police time and police expertise. So that is just some hope that's there. It's going to take a while. But those courses already, the first course is running now in June in Pretoria. So there is that opportunity for those officials who will want to say, well, we are going to be able to get the case docket, and we are going to be able to do our own investigations and take these matters to court. So just on that side, I know that DFFE has taken a big step forward in dealing with all of that in terms of getting the investigations of certain offenses that aren't organized crime offenses to be running with the EMIs themselves. So just a little bit of knowledge on that.
Thank you for that, Kevin.
Johannes, thank you. This is Andre from Cape Nature. I think we have a different challenge than yours, and I can only speak about the Gillnets River, and I know Steve and Lara know that river very well. We removed in the past a couple of gillnets, and we know that I can say I suspect that gillnets belong to landowners, because there's no way that a normal person can enter that land without their permission. And if you look at the location of the nets, you cannot go in there because that river passed their land, yeah, their farms. So it's difficult even to approach them, because if you want to see them, you must make an appointment. They want to know when you come so that they can give you access to the land. But we removed in the past of how many more time?
It was quite a,
Yeah.
it was quite a lot, but I think it's just a strategy. I'm Ultima de Boer. I'm one of the Andres colleague. I'm a field ranger and a CFO at the Mont, and I'm happy to be here tonight. And he also with this presentation is really interesting. But yes, it's just that these farmers are so clever, and they try to play with our minds, but we know we have to get access through their land, and that's the only way how they know we're coming. And we did speak about this also with Brigadier Poison, and we know that he will and is going to assist us. But I just want to share it, myself and Andre, that the challenges we have with landowners that also pretend to care about the history and the ecosystem, but also destroy, doing the illegal activity. Yeah, thank you.
Just an
Thank you,
important
guys.
Thank you, Johannes. Just an important factor for everybody. Well, these are the challenges that the defense will bring to you. They'll say, you need to prove that that net that they have there is a gill net. They bring that all the time. So you're going to need someone who's look at that and would therefore, if you don't have a clear definition, they present that to say, well, if you're saying this is an offense, over and above the fish and the unlicensed or unpermitted fishing and those, if you're saying it's a gill net, you need to prove to us that this is a gill net. We want to know what your definition is, and we want to know, therefore, that when you inspected it, that it complied with exactly what has been said there. So they bring in the factor of what is a gill net. And I see importantly, how you've spoken about it. Make sure when you're dealing with the prosecution and the investigation, don't just leave it to the police, because that's where you're going to get it. You're going to need somebody to talk about what a gill net is and how that's clearly understood. Because in the small areas and the one-man courts in the rural areas, often the magistrates might not understand it, and they might not understand what this means. So the proper measurements and understanding how this is defined becomes a very important element of the offense, which you guys need to get through very importantly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, noted on that one. And we'll definitely look into that matter, because I guess we all have different challenges and at the end of the day, we're all doing one thing, that is to protect and conservation and marine and freshwater. Yeah, so I salute you all and thank you.
Just want to sort of something on those gill nets and identifying the gill nets. Hello?
We can hear you, Stephen. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. One thing I put in the chat, but we have had very, very good success from research by providing information into affidavits based on the fish court or the inverts court, birds court. We put that information in. We also identify the nets. And obviously what most of us we've done has been marine and estuarine at the moment. I've done a few freshwater ones, but the net identification is the same. But well, in terms of my direct group is at fisheries, we are willing all the time to provide that information. So basically we get approached, whether it's from the local authorities, from our own, from the DFFE compliance, or fisheries compliance, or from some prosecutors, from SARS, and that, and we put the information together. So we put this here, affidavit together, describes the catch, what they are, what the current status is, and describes the nets, and it identifies the nets as gillnets. And generally we just do a standard measure in terms of the mesh sizes, whether it's a monofilament, multifilament, everything else, explain what the net is, and that goes through. And most of the time, that's the only information that actually goes to court, and it's the only information that's there. So it's the only information that's listened to. So that's where the success comes in, because my opinion on this, and I'm putting my opinion out there because it generally offends a lot of people in terms of this, but a lot of the time is that the magistrates and the prosecutors are just too insecure to actually proceed with any of the prosecutions because they don't have the information. But as soon as you empower them and you've got this big public information that's out there and explains about everything, it works. It's that. So I think the main thing here is to link people together from our research and from the various provincial researchers, the different groups, the provincial departments, and you have people who are there, and then when needed, the relevant experts that are there get contacted and say, can you please provide us with an affidavit in support of this prosecution? That works. It works very, very well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
We got Lauren's hands up. Laura, sorry.
Okay, thank you. I'm Laura Finnick from the CSR. And I just want to quickly, hold on a second here. Steve, take your mic down. I wanted to say, firstly, in my experience, that it's really important to hit this thing hard and quickly when it starts occurring in estuaries. The few successes that I've noticed is in places like the Gauteng, where when it started occurring, Cape Nature went in the guns and all, and it just very quickly makes the investment of those culprits less. Then the other thing that worries me a little bit is in the past when we did this, like I think the first gillnets I was ever involved with was on the bottom, the Klein at Hermanus Lagoon, so the really big system, estuarine lake type systems. And at that stage, it was very difficult to get it past the magistrates to basically prosecute because they were seeing it as livelihoods and all kinds of other things. And also, the nets were really expensive at that stage. So it was nearly more worth our while to take the nets out, burn the nets, and didn't even bother. Like, they really destroyed the nets as quick as possible. So there was no giving back the nets. And literally the nets were worth a few R100, even R1,000, 5,000 Rand if it's a big net. What worries me a little bit at the moment is that there seem to be a lot of very, very cheap nets coming into the country. So that way of managing it, so even if you weren't successful in the crime, you were making the incidental investment by the netter not worth its money if you 2 or 3 times take out his net. Now, I think those nets are maybe R100. And also if they use the mosquito nets, that's even worse. And then the whole thing that you're starting to see in some of the places like Umschletoos, where they're using the orange netting that you use for the oranges and for the citrus, sewing them together and basically netting with really small things. You're starting to see it in cozy as well, the lining of the cozy traps with nets, cheap nets on the inside. And I just feel like we need to look at the control of the nets also coming in. There's the prosecution. We know there's not enough feet on the ground to try and make people aware, all of that. I'm not negating that, but it feels like there needs to be, I don't know if it needs to be customs or who needs to be spoken to, but there's a need to look at the entry of these nets and the supply of these nets. And if that can't be regulated, because it's definitely becoming too cheap. And then the other thing is at some stage in, I think it was in the George area, where we were seeing a lot of these nets starting to pop into the big systems, sandbox systems for a while, was starting to talk to the Spar and to OK and to places that's selling the veg, because some of the netting that was being used looked like it was, they will get the fruit from market and then decant them in the shop and then sell the separate fruit. And then all these nets were just lying around and people were getting them. So we were trying to talk to the Spar and to a few of the bigger places if they would not like maybe control that nets or the bags, the orange bags, because they're such a cheap source. And they were actually willing to do it. But then I think it sort of petered out. I vaguely remember Sandbox also being part of the deal. And then in the end, it sort of ran out of energy because somebody has to keep on going back to the Spar or to the OKs and keep on reinforcing the message. But I'm just feel a little bit in the NBA, it was horrific. I ran the NBA. And seeing what has happened since 2011 and then 2018, especially in the estuaries where we're trying to sort of, it's one of our key pressures, just absolutely annihilating nursery function. If I think systems like the Swartkops, gill netting with such fine nets that basically you're taking out fish that's a few months old and they're not even getting this. Your nursery function is absolutely gone in those systems. Yeah, so I feel like maybe it also needs on the other side awareness raising, and then if you just target, and most of these nets, I don't think it's the woolly stuff. I think it's the Spars and the OKs and the checkers and the bigger guys that need to start controlling. They in any case on a plastic racket, these things are plastic, to try and make sure that it's regained or controlled so that it doesn't end up in a landfill site or just they leave it outside and people take it like they take boxes when they go and move. You can pick up your boxes for free at Checkers or OKs or wherever. So yeah, so that was my 2 cents that I worry about compliance. I worry about environmental crime not being seen as a big thing. I believe the green courts needs to be there and awareness needs to be generated about it. But I also worry about the cheap source of nets. And it doesn't matter how much we step up our compliance, that we need to try and throttle some of the entry points as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Johannes, just first of all, to thank Laura for their work on the science side and the research. Once again, without that, the courts, it's hard. And in terms of compliance and how to place and where to go. So I do know, Sibonisa, you could assist me with that, but in that system up north, with the Simangaliso and those whole issue, Cozy and that border right up north at Cozy, those nets are coming through there and were coming through there in huge volumes, being brought in via Mozambique and for very little cost. So those nets are coming through there huge. And therefore, I take absolutely Laura's point that we cannot allow those just needs to be pouring in. And I think possibly from the SARS point of view, there needs to be some effort to see how this is coming through and how this is allowed and on what basis and what the duties are to make sure that our systems are protected in terms of that. And then I think it's a very good idea to go back and speak to the green conscience of the retailers in terms of their plastic issues. They're trying to deal with bags, but there's a source, which is the citrus and other bags that are being discarded. Certainly, from my side, where I deal with some of these bigger retailers, I will bring that into conversation. So thank you for that and all that hard work, Laura.
Yeah, the other one that I also wondered about, having recently been working up in Mozambique a bit, it is horrendous, the level of fishing effort there. So we're not the only ones. I agree with you. I do think a lot of these nets are coming, I think they're Chinese, and I do think a lot of them are coming in via Mozambique, but it might be worthwhile talking to YAMSA about this as well and elevate that as a regional thing. So we try and stop it at the borders, but in fact, Mozambique can also benefit from trying to control that really cheap, if they want to. But I mean, they here as well, I've seen things, horrendously small things that's a week or two old getting netted now because they have these very, very fine nets. And just the idea of those nets in Cozy is a problem. So talking about Cozy, when we were there last year, October, for the first time, gillnets in Fourth Lake. So we've always had, and so your crocodiles are going to be gone. We didn't see any, and if they are there still, they are definitely not going to be long, you know. And it's a Ramsar site, it's a World Heritage site. All the birds, all of those things are key concerns for us. And again, the only thing I can think is the only places where it works is like really when it sticks its head out, to hammer it as hard as you can. Because in places like Umhletoes, I don't know if there's anything we can do. Like in Umhletoes, we've now said we want more access because it's so difficult to get into Umhletoes. That's our other major hotspot. It takes about 20 people to safely go into Umhletoes, but it's impossible to get in there. So if you increase access, which is something under the ICM Act, maybe then things aren't so hidden also, you know, and people don't become quite as lawless as they do in some places. But yeah, it was for me an eye-opener. KZN it's like cowboy country. I mean, I've like I said, my first gillnet was on the bot, so it was the poachers and the abalone people going crazy. But KZN is in a class of its own at the moment in terms of the violence and the gillnetting going on there. Thank you.
I see Stephen's hand and Siboniso.
Hi, Johannes.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, I fully concur with what Kevin was actually saying, because I think, and the other speaker, I missed her name. I think that's where we actually let also our guards down, because like that is the fact that like most of the gillnets, like especially here in KZN, come through Mozambican border, and that you can't deny. It's a fact. And but then I think it will be short-sighted to only look at the gillnets. You'll also need to look at the material that is used for making those gillnets, because like, you know, you have so many Mozambicans residing in northern Zululand, in areas like, you know, Mangus and stuff like that, who are actually the ones who are making these nets as well. So rather than just looking at the gillnets, because they may carry the material, you know, going through the border, but then when they are here in South Africa, then you have people who are actually manufacturing or making these gillnets. So I think that's one thing that one will have to look at. But then definitely there is an influx of those coming through from Mozambique. That is a fact. So I do concur with Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Siboni. So for your information, that James guy that I showed on the slide is also from Mozambique. So it's quite serious, yeah.
Stephen, I see your hands up, or is that an?
No, it's a new one. It's just on his. What has happened over the last year Kenya has outlawed monofilament gillnets. So they're only allowed multifilament gillnets now in the fisheries there. And they're come down quite hard on any ownership or use of the monofilament gillnets. So a lot of that net is now left Kenya and has found its way down here. So that's just that fairly recent surge you've seen in all of these coming out of all of those nets, essentially what we call single-use gill nets. So literally, they are so cheap and they're piling in. Those are the ones that have been booted out of Kenya. What's also happening in Kenya at the moment is I've gotten the actual piloting, the group is doing it. What they are piloting up there, and this is specifically to cut down on the ghost fishing aspects, and that is they're pioneering and testing biodegradable gill nets up there, and this is for the legal fishery that they have. So that's just something to keep an eye on from then on. One thing that the biodegradable nets will be a little bit more expensive at the time, but there's also a good chance they're never ever going to make it down here, because if there is an eventual switch over to them, they're either going to deteriorate before they get, before they find their way into our waters, or they're going to just carry on being used there because they're expensive. But as I said, a lot of that net coming down here now is the surplus net that's now prohibited in Kenya.
Thank you.
Just to assist on these points, Johannes, that I'll take forward for you. So I'm meeting up with my UN work. I will bring this to the UN Southern region, to the representatives here in the project, dealing with the project. Dealing with Mozambique, my colleagues there in SANEC and the others, I will bring that to their attention and see what they can do and how they're doing it from their side as per Laura's. I also work with obviously the others, Botswana, Namibia, and those areas. So I will now also be able to bring that to their attention. And then obviously in my working with Siboniso and those in Mpumalanga, we need to have a look and make sure that attention has been brought to your side for the authority and Ezemvela's side. I'm sure you already, but we just need to highlight that with your taking it up into upper management as specific projects. So I will do that from my side to make sure that this is highlighted, because this is a really devastating issue. I'm meeting with the national SARS people in a project that I'm dealing with in terms of training. So I will be speaking to SARS as well, and I hopefully can give you some feedback to those that I deal with, that when I can speak to SARS and see exactly how this issue of the monofilament that's coming through, that can be looked at, and how they're looking at that. So that's what I will pledge now to do in terms of assisting this from the outside.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, I think if that's everyone, then we can call this meeting adjourned. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone's input. This has been quite a great discussion. Nice to hear different input from all around the country. It's great to share information exactly like this is what we're after in these sessions. So yeah, once again, well done, Johannes. Thank you very much for putting this together. Yeah, it's been a very, very useful session, I believe.
Thank you so much, Richard. And I liked the discussions that followed the presentation. I like it so much. Thank you, sir, and to everybody.
Thank you, Johannes. Thank you, Richard, and to all of you. Keep up the good work, and thank you for the FFE and CSR, Laura, You guys are stars. Keep up the good work. Thank you for your help.
Pleasure, and actually thank you to everybody on the ground, because that's the real hard work. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for that.
Thank you so much, everybody. And I'm glad that we could join the session. And yeah, it is quite important for us to know and also learn and share ideas, because we all speak the same language when it comes to protecting our ecosystems and stuff. But thank you so much. And I hope to see you guys again and be part of this discussions quite a lot in the near future. Thank you so much.
All right, cheers everyone. I'm going to record this meeting to an end now in the recording. But yeah, thank you very much for your participation.